Hey guys, my name is Sid and welcome to another vlog. So today is going to be a story vlog. The other day I was looking through some of my old bags and stuff, and I found like this binder that my parents had made with which contained these old magazines. Yeah, it was these old magazines from 1997, and it just triggered so many memories for me because this was my first job, okay? So if you guys are wondering what I did for the magazine, I used to write a video game article called Game Fun. So here we go. So this is the article. So you can see it's Game Fun by Siddharth. And this article is about Tomb Raider 2 and Resident Evil 2 and Diddy Kong Racing. And the title is Rare Treat in the Offering. So it is a play on Diddy Kong Racing being developed by Rare Games. I wanted to tell you the story about how I started this job when I was only 13 years old, and some of the amazing benefits I got out of doing this job. When I was a kid, I was like crazy obsessed with video games. I remember going to my friend's house when I was about 7-8 years old, and he had the Atari system. I was completely blown away that you could do this with the TV, and I was just hooked to video games ever since. So I convinced my parents to get me an Atari as well, and ever since then I was obsessed with video games. I had the NES, I had the Super Nintendo, I had the Mega Drive, and my parents knew I loved video games. So for every occasion, whether it be birthday or Diwali or Christmas, I'd convince my parents to get me either a console or a game. As kids, we had very limited knowledge of video games. The only way we'd find out about new games and stuff was the Nintendo Power magazine back then. So I'd go buy these magazines and see all these amazing games, but I'd have a budget of maybe 4 or 5 games in a year maximum. So what we'd do is we'd exchange games with friends. So I'd get one game, my friend would get another game, and then we'd exchange them, and then we'd swap more. And that way we'd be able to play about 4 or 5, maybe 7 or 8 games a year. But obviously that wasn't enough for me. And as I got a little older, when I was like 12 or so, I remember the internet just had started coming out in Dubai, and I was able to go online and start looking at game information, and I got a lot more involved into the reviewing process of games, like how people review games. There were multiple opinions online, etc. So I thought maybe this is something I can do. Maybe if I become a game reviewer, I'll be able to get the games, to play them, and to review them. So I started thinking of ideas about how I could get into doing this. So the first thing I did was I wrote a couple of mock articles. So just to see how they flow, how difficult it would be for me to write an article. And then when I did 2 or 3, and I showed my parents. So I was like, what do you think? I want to start reviewing video games. So they said, okay. They read it, they thought it was cool, and they said, sure. So my dad was a very influential person in the advertising industry in Dubai back in those days. So he had a lot of connections with all the newspaper companies. So there were 2 major competing newspapers in Dubai. So there was Gulf News and Khalij Times, okay? Gulf News already had somebody writing them a video game article, but Khalij Times didn't. So I told my dad, listen, Khalij Times produces this youth magazine called Young Times. Young Times doesn't have a gaming section as yet, and a lot of kids are interested in gaming. So I want to take this idea and pitch it to the editor of the magazine and see if they'd be interested in doing something like that. So my dad said, sure, that sounds like a good idea. He set up a meeting for me, so me and my dad went to meet him, and I showed him my mock articles, and he asked me why I wanted to do it, and I told him how passionate I am about video games and how much I love them. And writing and reviewing was something I was interested in, and he saw that because I'd done the mock articles already, and he decided to give me an opportunity. So this magazine came out once a week, only on Fridays. and my article would be bi-weekly. So every other week I'd get a spot in the paper to, you know, release my article. So, you know, I had 2 weeks to prepare one article, which was more than enough time. It didn't affect my studies or anything like that. And I remember back then I would get 200 dirhams per article, which was an amazing amount of money for a kid, okay? 200 dirhams is now roughly $50. It was about $50 back then as well, but in 1997, and when you're 12 years old or 13 years old, that's a lot of money. So, you know, I started writing the articles, I really started enjoying it. People in my school and stuff started recognizing me because of the article, people who were into video games. And then slowly, after I did about 5 or 6 articles, I approached the biggest video game store that was there in Dubai back then. I told them, listen, you know, I write for Young Times. This is my article. I've done 7-8 articles already. Thousands of kids all over Dubai read this. And if you want to reach out to them, what I can do is I can speak to my editor and give you a little byline at the end saying that these video games were provided by GK Games and provide your phone number. So, you know, so that'll increase your reach, and, you know, in return, you give me free video games. You know, I'll tell you what the ones I want, I'll take them and I'll return them to you. I don't want to keep them. So they thought that was a good idea. Basically, that's how I started writing reviews of video games. I'd get all these games early. Sometimes I'd get consoles early. I remember I got the N64 like 4 or 5 days before it was officially launched in the UAE. And I had exclusive access. I remember playing Mario 64 and Pilot Wings, I think. Those are the 2 launch titles of the N64. And it was just such an amazing experience to have it early, first of all, and see that, you know, get to experience that. A couple of years later, they decided to stop the magazine completely, and, you know, my job as a video game journalist ended. But I had a lot of fun doing it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I got paid for it, and I got to play all the most amazing video games that I wanted to play, you know. So it was just the best job ever to have. The reason I wanted to talk about this story is a couple of things. I did a video about how to get a job in Dubai, and that got a lot of good response. But a couple of ideas I wanted to share from my experience of that first job is, the first thing is that I prepared for it in advance, okay? I knew I wanted to be a particular thing. I wanted to be a game journalist. And I saw what other people were doing, imitated it, and I created content that the editor could look at. If I just went in as a kid and said, hey, I want to write about video games, probably not be as interested. But since I had a portfolio of about 3-4 articles to show him, it showed him my seriousness. He had something to look at and review, and, you know, it needed a little bit of work. He told me to change a few things around, but, you know, he appreciated the effort, and that got me a great opportunity. The second thing is I leveraged my dad's influence. Now, you guys might say that, oh, we don't have a dad to help us in this way. But what I mean by that is that I leveraged my network. So at that time, my network was my dad and maybe some of my friends' dads. And that's how, that was all the network I had access to. And I leveraged it. It wasn't, I asked my dad to, you know, to see if he could do something. If I never asked him, nothing would ever happen. So my dad has always been amazing. He's always supported me in everything I ever wanted to do. My dad's a great dad, if you're seeing this. But, and so is my mom. But getting back to the point, I leveraged my network to try and get something accomplished. And I don't see anything wrong in that. If you have access to something, you should utilize it. I mean, you should utilize every resource you have if you were trying to accomplish something. And the third thing is that I then leveraged my article in the newspaper to get something even more out of it, which was the free access to the free video games. And you know, that's just That's what they call hustling, right? So it's just making the best of your current situation to try and optimize that your current situation. That's all the knowledge I have to share today. So what I thought I'd do to end this video off is show you some of the funny stuff that I've written in these articles back in the 90s, alright? This one had the Ishq movie on its front page, and this one was Tom Cruise. So yeah, I remember this. This was the Men in Black game that came out. And check out my opinion about it, yeah? The game boasts amazingly realistic 3D graphics. Great attention has been paid to detail in the game, and it's almost movie-like. This is what it looks like. Ooh, psychedelic cover, man. The Batman Forever movie came out just about then. Oh yeah, this was before they changed it. Before it was called High Tech Talk. And this is the article I was talking about. This is the launch of the N64. And this was my review of Mario 64 and Pilot Wings. So back then this console used to cost 1,400 dirhams over here. No, I was expecting it to be 1,400 dirhams because that was the launch price in the US, but it was launching for 2,300 dirhams in Dubai. I gave Super Mario 64 a whopping 98 out of 100, and I stand by that, by the way. I still think it's an amazing game. And then I gave Pilot Wings as 93%, which I think was a little over the top for this, but I remember being super excited about the N64. So here we go. I don't know why this page is ripped out, but this was my article, and it was all about the new Sega games that were coming to PC. Daytona, Virtua Fighter were all coming to PC. That's what it was about. So this article was about the Intel MMX chip that was coming out. So this was like they came out with Pentium, and then they came out with Pentium MMX. So this was like a big upgrade, so it was supposed to be really good for gaming, and that's what this article was about. Man, I was pretty smart as a 12-year-old, man. Like, these are like some informative articles, I think. What do you guys think? So here was the article. Okay. And I think my writing style was pretty good. Check this out. Sorry guys, this HTT High Tech Talk was supposed to be about tips, but I suddenly got wind of some important news for you, which was the release of the 2 most weighted games of the year. Well, you do know, well, that's a pretty good opening hook. What do you think? Well, you do know that everything is going 3D, right? First it was Street Fighter, and this time it's Sonic. Yes, that's right, Sonic. Have you become bored of playing MK3? Mortally not possible. Nice pun. MK3 was Mortal Kombat 3, by the way. Wow, dude, I never realized how like psychedelic their covers were. This is called Close Encounters. I think this was like a Diwali episode, the Diwali edition or something. Posters of Martina Hingis. I don't know if you remember, she was like a huge like tennis celebrity back in the day. I remember was one of my favorite games, Donkey Kong Country for the Super Nintendo. And this was all about Donkey Kong Country 3, and this was my review of it. And I love this game, man. It was one of my favorite games. It was really amazing for its time. My article is about virtual reality hits the net big time. So it was about how the speeds for internet are increasing, and now you're able to run something called VRML, which is virtual image on a computer. You need to have a plugin, which you can get for Netscape Navigator and Internet Explorer. Yeah, you need to have at least 2800 bits per second. By the way, if you don't know how that much is, it's about 22.8 kbps, 2% of an MB. like 50 articles over here. I don't want to bore you guys, but you get the idea. So that's it. I just wanted to share this little story with you guys. Let me know what you thought of the story. And if you like this video, hit that like button, leave me a comment, and subscribe to watch more videos like this. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. And as you can see, I'm still pretty obsessed with video games.